Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
Today, we are doing Frank Miller's Sin City.
Sin City, finally.
Finally, we're coming back to Frank Miller. I don't know if you guys remember, but I don't know, issue or episode I think it's in the 30s.
30s,
something
yeah.
like that. We did a whole bunch of all of the Dark Knight series by Frank Miller. The Dark Knight Returns, Dark Knight Strikes Again,
The Golden Child.
The Golden Child, Master Race, the one where Robin is in it. The Last Crusade.
Yeah, The Last Crusade.
That was super fun to check out his career, and we also did 300 and Xerxes, his two other books. So we figured one thing that John has never read from Frank Miller that I love and I've been a big fan of since I read it was Sin City, and this was a movie, and I was surprised John has not seen this movie.
No, my only knowledge of Sin City is, some obviously the famous art from it, and then I'm sure I've seen the trailer a few times over the years. But yeah, I skipped the movie because I guess I wanted to have the background on the comic first for it. I usually like to know what I'm getting into.
Yeah, I'm so happy you did though, because reading the comic first is way cooler than seeing the movie and then reading the comic, which is what I did. I wish I had seen it because the movie totally spoils everything in the comic.
Yeah.
So not even just the dialogue's the same or the story. It's the fucking imagery is exactly the same as the page. So it's very, very basically the comic book is a storyboard for the movie. At least that's how it feels to me. So and I think they knew that. They were like, what if we made it shot for shot the exact same thing? And so if you've seen Sin City, it's pretty damn close to the book. I'm assuming most people here have seen Sin City or listening, not in the room with us. But yeah, the imagery of this is really the thing that is evocative. The story itself is pretty straightforward, kind of anti-hero crime fiction. And it's told in that way from
which makes sense why you like it so much. Now I thinking about that.
Yes, I mean I'm a big fan of crime fiction,
yeah,
and I like anti-heroes. And this first volume is called The Hard Goodbye, and it follows one character named Marv, who is not a cop or a good guy. He is a bad guy, some muscle. He's a muscle. He's a neutral. He's a chaotic neutral.
Do you find out what he is overall throughout the other parts of the comic?
No.
It doesn't. Okay, so we really never learn.
We never know. I mean, he's just a guy in
him.
town who likes to go to strip clubs and drink beers and has a weird psychosis problem. And
that's the extent of it?
That's it, yeah.
Okay, that's cool. That's actually kind of even more refreshing because it's don't need any of that stuff. Just enjoy the story.
He does appear in some of the other comics as background character, and also I think he helps out he's a side character in one of them, but there's no he was born and there's no definitive history of Marv and who he works for and all that shit that I remember. At least it's been a while since I read all 7. Usually you start with 1 and then you get through 4 and you're all right, I'll take a break, and then you never come back to it. So you read this digitally on Hoopla. I read this because I have the entire series in one big damn book called the Big Damn Sin City Collection. And it's pretty heavy, I'll say that.
Looking at it on the shelf over there, yeah, it is gigantic. It makes it. One thing I love about comic collecting in general, and this is only from the perspective of I pretty much only had trades, individual issues, and I think I remember when I bought my first Absolute, it was All-Star Superman,
right?
Which isn't that big, no. It's big.
You can hold that thing in your hand all day long.
Yeah.
It's not heavy.
But if you look at Matt's shelves, and I'm sure you've seen it in the back of some of his Matt's Minis episodes, if you haven't, check it out because he's got a nice display now. But some of these absolutes and collections are I don't know how you want to take. How do feel I understand how you would take that out and then read it from it. They're so big.
I just put it on my lap.
Yeah.
and tilt it upward. Yeah,
like a little baby. It's like like a baby.
Yeah, my hand does get tired, and sometimes my wrist hurts afterwards. But you know what? It's worth it because you can see the art in that giant page format. And I'm a big fan of absolutes and omnibuses. I will say I do read absolutes more than omnibus because omnibus is so hefty. But that's mainly just because, like, when I read a book, you kind of feel the urge to get through it all the way. So, like, an absolute's usually about 12 to 16 issues or something, maybe 20 if it's crazy. But, like, an omnibus is, like, 30-plus issues. So it's like I feel like, that's a lot to feel like, I'm reading through this or whatever, It's like I'm going to read Lord of the Rings, the whole tome, like all the way through. Not just, it's like if you break it up into separate books, it's much more manageable to me than if you just have the big Lord of the Rings print that's just one book. It's all 3 books in one.
Yeah, no thank. That's too much.
Yeah, and that's kind of the same feel. Like, okay, I can read all this. If it was trades and I just was like going one after the other, I could sit down and read all this. When you read it like as a tome, it's a little bit more of a ceremony to it or something. Like I don't know. It's like it takes more out of you or something. Just holding it. That's how I get my exercise. I do my omnibuses. That's how I do. But yeah, so this one was definitely heavy. I read all 200 pages of this first book in like an hour or so. But yeah, definitely had to move around a bit, had to adjust the holding of it. But, it's pretty fucking nice to have it in one big book. I used to have the old, they had originally like these slip cases for all, like 4 volumes a piece. There was like, because there's 7 volumes of Sin City total. And this was the first one that we read. So there was 4 volumes in the first slipcase and 3 in the second, and then an art book. And they're individually bound books in the slipcases. So you could pick out just the first volume and the second volume, which was nice. That was kind of like the best way to read it. Although there was like issues with the bindings on those. So I had got rid of those a long time ago. And then, when I saw this one, I was like, oh, cool. Like, I'll just get this big one to replace those. And then they're coming out with fucking fancy single editions of each one in its own slipcase.
Oh, no.
They're $100 each. And I'm like, I kind of want all 7 of them. Because they also come with an art print for each one, too.
Oh, that's cool.
And I'm like, they're like special edition, leather-bound versions. I'm like, I want them. But, I already have them in one other
How much,
volume.
do you recall how much this one was?
That was $100.
So you bought $100 for the whole thing, and
Yeah.
then you're like, I kind of want to spend $100 on each.
I kind of want to
one.
spend $700 now. So technically, it'd be $800 on the Sin City franchise, minus whatever. I think it was $150 for the old volumes.
What we're trying to say again is, if Frank Miller, if you're listening, obviously we love you on this podcast. And
you have a sucker, Matt here. So, I mean, I do that all the time, though. I have individual hardcovers for books that I have in omnibus because I'm like, I'd rather read them in hardcover than in like single hardcovers than the whole big omnibus. But I have it in omnibus already.
But you like having the omnibus bear.
Yes, I like having it on the shelf.
That's nice.
Yeah. I'm just a sucker. That's what I'm trying to say.
I have a beautiful library. It's full of many leather-bound
books. Exactly.
I don't read them, but it looks beautiful.
I read mine. So. But anyway, yeah. So Sin City, I saw this movie in high school. And I remember I went to go see it. I think I had recently turned 17. So it was like, oh, fuck yeah, I can go see rated R movies. And I went to the movies and I was like, oh, this is going to be like a cool comic book. I know who Frank Miller is. At the time, I was kind of comic book adjacent. Like, I was familiar with properties. I'd seen Hellboy and Constantine, and I was really into those. And I liked reading comics when I was a younger kid, and I liked the Batman animated series and the X-Men TV show and Spider-Man animated series. But I hadn't really been able to read comics because there was no comic book stores near me. So, and I didn't, and this was before Amazon and shit, so you can't buy any of that like easily. Yeah, I had a Borders Books in town, and I could go there, and everything was like $20 for these collections, and I was kind of like, I don't know if I have $20 for something I don't know is good, But then it's a lot easier to pay like $2.99 at the time. Now they're like $8 or $4.99 or whatever. But when you go into a comic book store and you're like, I'll try this issue out. It's $3. Okay, no big deal. But then when you were, going to buy a collection, it's like, oh, that's $17 or $20. It's like, oh, that's a bigger.
Oh yeah, especially as a kid. I mean,
Yeah.
you
When I
only
was
have so
17,
much
I
funds.
had a job that paid $80 every 2 weeks. So that's precious money right there. So yeah, when I went to go see Sin City, I'm sitting there, I'm excited. I was like, I know this is a comic book movie. It's going to be fucking awesome. I know the name Frank Miller. It's going to be badass. And it's rated R. So I was like, oh, this got to be good, you know? And then I remember being in the theater and like it starts and it's pretty violent and everything right away. And it's called Sin City. And like a whole family, like little kids and like two parents get up and are like, oh, I can't believe, and they walk out all angry, and I was like, you took your kids to see a movie called Sin City that's rated R. What the fuck did you think it was going to be? Like, I mean, if it was called X-Men or something, maybe I would understand, but it's still rated R for a reason. So I don't know. Weird. I don't know why they thought so, but I was like, well, fucking idiots. And I loved this movie when it first came out. I have watched it since. About 3 months ago, I was like, let's watch Sin City again. And I was like, it definitely is a rough comic book movie. I was talking to you earlier. I was like, this was when they weren't exactly sure how to make comic book movies. And if they made this today, I still don't know if they would make it correctly or like better, because it's a totally different comic book movie. It's not a Marvel movie, you know? It's like a crime noir that's got a very distinct visual style. So like, I think they did the best they could in the best that they would now too, but like at the same time, it's definitely not perfect, or it's kind of like weird, because they do in this book, there's a lot of narration, and they just put that narration the whole time over the screen while the images are showing. So it's very much like a comic book, but it's a movie. So you got to change, you know, I would expect you to change some of that format for the media that you're working in. So that was his biggest downfall, I think, is that the narration was like over a lot of imagery, just like in the comic, but it's like, but yeah, like maybe you
could have let some of them just play out and gotten this
exactly, yeah, and got a little bit more acting and story, and rather than like like you just see Marv staring and he's like and then you get the narration of like, I was so angry I could have squeezed his head with like a lemon or whatever the fuck he was saying.
Yeah, and
it was just like, okay, but like you could just show him yelling out or acting some other way other than just staring, like the panel has it, because the panel is static or whatever. So like, I don't know, it was kind of like lackluster, or it was weird because it didn't feel like it was a movie. It felt like it was a motion comic or something, you know? So, but anyway, let's get into this story. I think I kind of already spoiled it, but the name of this book is called The Hard Goodbye. This is volume 1, and the main character is a dude named Marv. And they do introduce Sin City a little bit, like what the city is later on. But basically, we're talking about Las Vegas, basically. Like,
yeah.
Like it's just, some politician found out that, you know, if I start a brothel area next to this mining town, they'll make a bunch of money. And so that ended up becoming Sin City or whatever. So that's why it's called Sin City. It's basically Las Vegas. So makes sense, right? You know? Yeah. But we start off right away with Marv. We get introduced to him, and he's in bed with a lady named Goldie, and he doesn't know why. Like, he's like, I don't know how I got here, but I'm sure damn happy I did, or whatever. Like,
yeah,
you know, like he thinks it's like a miracle that this girl is willing to sleep with him, and the reason why is because he is a very, very scarred.
He's a linebacker of a man.
Yeah, I mean, he is basically the Boz, but with like a horribly scarred face.
Yeah.
So, like, he's got the Boz with a boxer that's been boxing for 20 years, but is not a good boxer. So his face just gets pummeled the whole time. He's got a face like that. So if you know who the Boz is, he's a very tall, like white guy, but he's got like that flat top and everything. You know, he's like 90s football guy or whatever. And then, but just imagine his face is beat to shit and his scars everywhere. So he's not a good looking guy. He doesn't, I think even in this, they suggest that he is a virgin. Like, he's never been able to be with a woman because the way he is physically, the way he looks, and also the way that he is mentally, because he has some mental problems. He continuously throughout this volume talks about how he needs his pills because they kind of clear his head up. Without his pills, not everything's so clear, and he even might think that he's sometimes visualizing or having a hallucination when he's not, and things like that. So like he doesn't always know what exactly is happening, but he is our narrator through this as well. So I'm trying to think if there's any moments where he's like an unreliable narrator, but
he's an unreliable narrator to himself once or twice.
Yes, but not to, the,
not
audience.
To the audience.
I feel like there's actually two narrations going on because the narration in this is designated by usually just text on the side of like a big page, a splash page, and there's two different types, and then even when it's in the text boxes, there's like the standard looking text, and then there's italics text. And the italics is like what he's saying to himself and kind of like talking himself through stuff, and the other kind of just like his inner thoughts that are narrating correctly what's going on. Yeah. Generally. So so he sleeps with this girl. She rocks his world. He's like, Goldie smells like amazing heaven and
like an angel, and
like
just how angels should smell.
Yeah, exactly. And she's going to town on him. He's like, I couldn't believe she's, she treated me better than anyone's ever treated me. No one's ever done this before, and she's so amazing. And then he wakes up and he's sitting there and he's like, I feel like a cold thing in my stomach, because he knows this feeling. He knows what happens when he gets this feeling. Basically, she's dead next to him, and he doesn't know why. She doesn't have any marks on her. He wakes up. He's like, they were drunk, or he was really drunk at least. So like, he doesn't remember because he kind of blacked out after they had sex, and he's like, I didn't do any of this because there's no marks on her or anything, but someone snuck in here, and I was too drunk to hear them. But even with that, like usually I'll wake up. But someone was that sneaky, like that good, that they snuck up and choked her next to me and killed her. So he's on a mission to find out who did it. And because, this lady was the only nice person ever. And you said you kind of had like, this was a little bit of an unbelievable thing in this to you.
Well, I get like, so talking more about his and saying that, like the implications, I guess I didn't put together maybe that he had never slept with a woman, but it came to me as like, I don't know, like, yeah, he says basically like I loved her.
Yeah.
And it was one of those, like, I guess, and maybe it's because I've been married for too long now or something. I don't know.
I don't understand what love is anymore.
No, I just like how do you fall in love with someone that, because it's literally someone he just met and then they just had sex, and I'm like, well, I guess.
Apparently you don't remember what having sex was like the first time.
Oh my God, I love you. I can't.
Yes, because I could totally remember, being in high school and being like, I love you, for not even that, for like, oh, she looks at me. I love you. You. She said my name.
Yeah. She remembered my name. Oh, I love you.
Exactly. I was like Ralph Wiggum. Like, how'd you choose you? Like, how that card you gave me out of sympathy, now that means that we're boyfriend and girlfriend. And I love you. Like, that's exactly how it is.
Wait a minute. If you pause and
you can see his heartbreak.
The moment his heart breaks.
Yeah, exactly. So, and they do say in this, and I kind of read it over and over just to double check, but so he says, when he's talking to some prostitutes later, you guys would never touch me, right? Like, there's no way that I got them near me. So he's never had a prostitute that he could pay to have sex with. And then later on, he's like, no one's ever, or I think some other time in the story, he's like, no one's ever done this for me, or been, I've never been with a woman like this. So he says those things. So I'm like, okay, I think he's a virgin, and because he's just like so ugly or whatever, and he's just like has mental problems, and he's psychotic or whatever. So rightfully so, women are not like, yeah, I like you. So we find out later why Goldie is into him at all for this whole thing, but he doesn't know most of the time during this. He starts off just like, she was super awesome, I had a blast, and then she was dead, and I got to find out who killed her, because why? And then also, why did they leave me alive? Like what was so important about her? And so he stands up in this room, and right away he hears cops. He's like, okay, the only people who knew about this death are me in this room and the guy who killed her. So obviously this is some kind of setup. They're trying to set me up to fall for this death. So that is like the premise of why he goes on this quest to find out, who killed Goldie. One, he loved her and he's mad that someone killed her. And two, obviously there's some kind of behind the scenes drama, inside job going on where like, someone's trying to set him up, so he's gonna figure out what it is. So these cops come through the door and they run up the stairs because, of course, there's no elevator in this place. And this is where we get like the first fight scene. We also get the first mention of his pills, and he's like, I gotta take my pills before I get here. I gotta keep my head clear. And he takes his pills, and then you just see him be like smile as the police knock on the door, and they're like, "Police, open up!" And he's like, "I'll be right out." And then, then he just bursts through this fucking door, and just like takes on all these fucking cops. He gets shot, and it doesn't do anything. Like, it goes through his shoulder. He doesn't stop. He doesn't say "ouch" or anything. He just goes on a killing spree with these cops, and like not on purpose necessarily. Like, he's just trying to wound them enough to stop shooting at him. But I'm sure some of them die. A lot of them have legs snapped and arms snapped, and they get shot by their own weapons that he's like, pushing back into them and stuff. So, but there's this epic scene through these levels of the stairs that are pretty awesome, because he jumps through the middle of them and kind of falls and grabs railings, and it's pretty awesome. And then he eventually gets to a floor where he has to run out and jumps through a window, and he goes down into an alley, and like he doesn't have any qualms killing cops at all, or anybody for that matter. But like he does say later on, like, "Oh, I don't kill women and children." I think he says,
"Yeah, women and children."
But he does. I don't think he kills any of them, but he definitely has no qualms, like maybe hurting them if he thinks it's for their own good, kind of thing. Like he'll slap someone, knock them out, or whatever, kind of thing. So, but he sees police are waiting for him in the alley. He just jumps through the fucking windshield of the car.
Yeah, jumping through the windshield was cool.
It was pretty cool. And then he steals the car, and obviously they're chasing him through the streets. He just drives off of a pier. And like all this is like super over the top. This is like the first 5 pages of this book or whatever. Just straight into it. There's no like, oh, let me explain the world. This explains the world we're living in. The cops are after me. It's dirty. Something's wrong.
Actually, we should say it's like the first 10 pages, because the first 5 pages are the sex scene, which is like the whole thing's in black and white. But the way that
we have to talk about this. Frank Miller's art in this is fucking amazing. The whole comic is in black and white, but depending on what the lighting is on the shot or whatever, like different areas will be black and white. A lot of stuff is just in silhouettes. You get the shape of a car or the shape of a woman on top of you. Yeah. And a very shapely woman. Right?
Yes.
And he knows how to draw those shapes, you know what I'm saying? So he's a big fan of certain shapes, we'll say.
Wow.
But yeah, it's called Sin City, so just like that movie, it's rated R. It's not for kids, so but there's nudity and extreme violence and extreme gore, but the gore is black and white. So, that's what covers it somewhat, probably for comics reasons as well. Like if I showed this in reality, like on a page, it would be super bloody and super fucked up. But if it would be an NC-17 comic at that point. Like if I showed us having sex for real, it would be, with color and everything, all perfect lighting or whatever, not black and white, it would be a problem. So, I think that he did that on purpose, but before this, I don't think there was comics like this. I think that the reason why we read this is because we had read Polar, and I was like, oh, this reminds me of Sin City, but there's like an orange color in it as well, and it's a less refined version of Sin City. And then even this comic, because it's the first one, is a less refined version of the later volumes of Sin City.
Really?
So like he gets even better at storytelling than in this one. And this is pretty fucking...
Yeah, it's a good... This is a good introduction story.
Yeah, so this is pretty straightforward, awesome off the bat, and he even gets better in the later volumes. So... and this is like Frank Miller in his prime. Prime Miller in his prime.
Miller. That's what he's called during this period.
Miller.
Prime Miller.
Yeah. And, this is like 1991, I think this came out, or around there, 92, something like that. So this is like way before, Dark Knight Strikes Again or any of that shit. I think it's before probably whatever caused the art change in him, whether that was a medical thing or whatever. But, I don't like to speculate, but, there was a change. Something happened in his artwork. And that's the other thing. Like this is, if you look at Frank Miller now, he's got a different style because his art style change is not nearly as clean or as precise. And it's kind of like you look at I don't know if there's an artist who's done this, but if his art now is more like a Picasso, and his art before was more like just a straight line, perfect rendition of what's going on kind of thing. There wasn't as like the face marks and stuff were there. The line wasn't so thick, and I don't know if that's because it's digital as well nowadays, but who knows? I don't know. But this was definitely pen and ink on page or brush and ink on page, and looks fantastic. So it's good that you pointed that out because I just kind of you assume sometimes people know what we're talking about, what this looks like, but yeah, this is straightforward. This doesn't look like a manga though, like even though it's black and white art. No. This looks completely different than anything I think that had come out before that time, before this time. So. And then since then, of course, like we said, Polar is very similar to that. There's definitely other ones that have come out that look like this, but he was the first to do this that I know of. Like I said, he doesn't even stray anywhere near manga in this at all. So like, no,
and just again to get a grasp of or a sense of what you're talking about. If you have it, you definitely and we've posted some obviously if you listen on YouTube, you'll see a couple images or Instagram will post. But if you can take a gander through this, like if you're in the store thinking about getting it, just seriously, because some of the pages, like it's so interesting to think. This would have been a cool comic to see how things are created like they do now, because like so much now is kind of not over explained, but it's cool to see like we get a lot of really cool in depth behind the scenes nowadays.
Yeah.
Because of the age that we live in of technology.
Yeah, YouTube artists are telling the secrets of the trade.
Yeah, but like this era of Prime Miller
yes.
would have been an amazing thing to see him create this, because there are pages that are all white with the black outline, and there are pages that are all black with the white all black with the white outline, or all white with the black outline.
Yeah.
Of the characters and or what's going on.
Or mixed. Where you're like, how okay.
And it's just like, it's just like, what color was his page initially? How did he start this? How did he finish this process? Like,
yeah, and a lot of it is
cool.
like, how like if you just put two dots and a line curving up, you're like, oh, it's a face.
Yeah,
but it's just two dots and a line. Like your mind fills in the information. Like he is doing that with shadow and just whiteness on the page. So like he'll draw a line and then fill in the background around it with black, and you're like, oh, that's a shower, or that's an arm. But if you actually didn't know, if you've never seen an arm or whatever, or you just put it out there, and because also some of this, there was one shot where I'm like, I don't know what's going on in this panel, because it was so stark. There's so like only white, and then there was just a couple slashes of black in it. I'm like, I don't know what that is. And it's kind of like those I thought of it like one of those pictures that's made up of dots or whatever, and then when the kind that you look at it and then it forms an image if you stare at it. It's supposed to be like that, where like your mind will eventually put it together. I didn't end up eventually putting this one together. I'll point it out when we get there.
Okay.
But it was like later on, I was like, I don't know what I'm looking at, so I got to get your take on it. But like that's probably the only one in this whole thing. The rest of it is, that's why I said like this one seems even a little bit it's perfect, but there's a little bit less refinement than there is later on when he really gets down like, oh, I'm going to do this new technique that I came up with that no one else has done, you know? And so like everything just speaks like to you as this thing, but it's just like, that is just an outline of a car, but it's not like, it looks like black. And then your mind fills in the information of the lights and the windshield and the tire. Cause he's just putting a dot and a stripe across the page in a certain shape, but it's not like, oh, that's a car. It just reads as a car.
Yeah.
So I thought that was super cool. Like a lot of this is just you reading it with your mind filling in the information as you're watching or as you're looking at the page. So, but anyway, so he goes in the water with this police car and he doesn't come back up. They're waiting for him on top. They're going to shoot him, of course, the police are, and he goes into like a sewer system that drains into the river or whatever, and ends up going through the tunnels and gets out. It just barely misses the police kind of making a beat walk by him, but he's able to hide in the shadows. And then he climbs to.
He's got to get to Lucille.
He's got to get to Lucille. We're like, wait, who's Lucille? And Lucille is a woman who, of course, like a lot of the ladies in Sin City, she sleeps naked for the most part, and she wakes up by hearing a noise, as he breaks into her house, and she gets a gun. She goes out naked. I was like, I guess whatever you do, whatever you got to do.
Maybe it's a distraction. You're like, and then
sure. I should say topless. She's topless, but and then she goes into the kitchen or whatever, and she turns the lights on, and Marv's just like, "You got any beers?" Like, so obviously they know each other. It turns out she's his shrink, or no, she's his parole officer, and she is a lesbian, and her girlfriend is a shrink. They mentioned that later. That's why he's coming here, basically.
Yeah, because So this is where we find out. This is where he gets his pills, and it's partially because his girlfriend was his shrink, but only for a little. Her girlfriend, sorry, was his shrink, but only for a little bit. Because
I think it was only one session.
Yeah.
He said like, I tried to go to therapy with Lucille's girlfriend, but it didn't work out. She was too scared after the first session or whatever. So, like basically what is she? What's Lucille?
She's
the parole officer. That's right. So the parole officer is like, you're better with these pills, even though you can't get them legally because no one will see you because you're so fucked up or whatever. Like, so I'll just give you these pills. And so he goes to her for this prescription. And so he talks to her. He tells her, I'm in some deep shit, but I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't kill anybody but there's something going on where they think I did or whatever. So, but he needs his pills to make sure. And I will say there's some language that gets said around in this issue that, some words. I would say this is from Marv's point of view. Marv is not a very polished person or a polite person or whatever. So he calls her in his head. He doesn't say it to her face. Oh, no, he might say it to her face. I can't remember. He says a lot of times like I don't know why you're gay but he doesn't use the word gay. He says like a slur for a gay person. He's like, I don't know why you're gay, or it's a slur for lesbian, basically. Yes. Yeah, but because you look so hot, basically, like you're just so fine. I don't know, you could have any man you want. I don't know why you'd be gay. So like he doesn't understand, at all like sexuality or anything. So that's another reason why I was like, I don't think he's had sex before. So he's not very quick on the uptick on any of these topics or anything. So. But she doesn't. I mean, she's like, I'm sure terrified of him to an extent as well, but also feels bad enough for him to like give him, help as needed. So his meds, and also like kind of go easy on him because she doesn't call the cops to alert them when he's like, someone's dead, but I didn't do it. And she was like, all right, like, I guess I believe you because you've been pretty honest to me so far, or whatever. Yeah. So he seems like one of those guys that's like, he's not a good guy, but he has a code that sometimes gets, changed based on the situation or whether his mental state is like, is he on his pills or not? But for the most part, he's got a code that, he won't hurt a woman kind of thing. So he makes a run for it out of her house after he, gets the pills. He's like, I'm thinking straight now. I know what I need to do. So he's like, I got to go for Gladys. I got to get Gladys. And so you're like, okay, who's Gladys? And, who's this woman? And it turns out he's got to go back to his house, like where his mom lives, because he still has like a room there, and the mom has kept like his model airplane.
Yeah, he's got his model airplanes on the ceiling, like toys, and
his little bed that like is way too small for him that he's sitting on.
Yeah,
and we find out that Gladys is a gun that he like kept hidden in his room as a child. I don't know how long he's been away from his house, or if this is like a recent thing, or if he did have it like as a child. But he keeps it in like his little toy box or whatever. So she's never found it. But he's got like 1911 basically pistol, and that's the name Gladys. That's what he gave it. So and he's like, it's great to be reacquainted with Gladys. Like I just kind of like wheel her around, getting a feel for her. like so he's just swinging around.
Yeah, he looks like he's posing in the room.
Yeah, like he's just happy to have it. You know how you feel with a gun. You just feel good to have it.
Yeah, sure.
Strong. You just walk around pointing it at stuff, turning the TV on.
In Texas, you do.
In Texas, yeah, obviously. We all do that. We all have like gun-proof.
Yeah, if you don't know this, everyone in Texas has a gun, and they open carry it because you're allowed to now.
Right.
And you just kind of brandish it and let people know, like, hey,
Yeah, someone looks at you weird, you kind of lift your shirt up
Yeah.
or whatever. Hey,
hey,
look
I'm
at that.
packing. Are you packing? No,
They're packing too. So we all look at each other and we go,
Mhm.
ma'am. And then, so anyway, but Marv is very happy to have this gun. He gets his gun. He talks to his mom a bit, and she's like, Marv, what are you doing here? He's like, oh, don't worry, Mom. I was just getting something from my room. You stay here. You're good. Like you be good, Mom.
I love he's cut like all the bandages and stuff from all the fighting over the night when I think he basically bandaged up too at Lucille's.
Lucille's, yeah, she helped him with.
And his mom's like, "Oh, what happened to your face?" And he's like, "Oh, I just cut it shaving. That's all."
Yeah,
and it's like it's like all over his face.
Yeah, and then she's like, "You're not telling me something. You need to be honest." He's like, "Oh, I forgot. I have a girlfriend named Goldie now, and all this, like, just shit like this. Oh, she's real nice, like just like I don't know. It's interesting how like sheltered the mom is, but obviously she's pretty old. The way, and also one thing that's funny, look at her, the way she's drawn. She has the same nose, which you think like Marv's nose, which is just completely flat and like there's the forehead goes from his top of his forehead to the bottom of the tip of his nose. So like there's no divot or anything. It's just a flat line. So you think like, oh, maybe that's because he like got in a fight and his nose is smashed. So no, his mom has the same nose. That's just, I don't know how ugly his mom is, but
Their side profiles make me think of Bob's Burgers.
Yeah, Bob's Burgers are like Bert and Ernie or something.
Yeah.
We're like like some kind of Muppet because their faces are so distinct looking with that brim, the straight line, from the brow to the nose. So yeah, he leaves with the gun now, and he's ready for battle. He thinks at least, but he's got to find out like who's doing this. So he goes on a mission to find out what's going on. He needs the only information he has really is that this woman named Goldie, right? So. He's looking around. He goes to a bar, and this bar is, a well-known bar. I can't remember the name of it. Katie's. There you go.
I think it's a strip club, actually, right?
So
because they're dancers, but I don't know.
It's kind of like a burlesque club. I'm thinking like where like they're not doing
It's like
striptease for dollars,
Yeah.
and lap dances. I think it's like while you drink beer, there was a woman on stage dancing, and she is topless, but she's not doing it like no one's there at the bar or at the stage where she is giving her money. I think she just gets paid from the bar or whatever to do that. So
Gotcha.
It's not quite a strip club, I don't think. But he meets resistance at the beginning because there's a new door guy, and the guy didn't know who Marv was. So Marv's like, "Get the fuck out of my face," and just, like basically sticks his thumbs in his eyes.
Yeah.
What I gathered from that, or like grabs his face very forcefully. Enough to hurt it, and they're like, "Oh, he's new. He didn't know Marv." And he's like, "Oh, okay. Well, tell him next time," basically. And so we see the lady dancing on stage is a girl named Nancy who comes into the picture later on. If you've seen Sin City the movie, you know who she is. But yeah, she's dancing, and he's once again asking people around because this is like a sleazy bar where the bad people go. So he's like asking around. Hey, what do you know about a girl named Goldie? And like, why would someone?
Why would someone maybe want to hurt her?
Yeah, and so he asks, a couple people. By ask, I mean like grab them forcefully and hold them down until they give him information.
I like the one guy he talks to here named Weevil because it looks like a fat Wolverine.
Yes,
kinda.
yes, it looks exactly like a fat Wolverine, which I'm sure is not, he drew Wolverine.
Yeah.
So I'm like, Frank Miller did Wolverine with Chris Claremont. So
Yeah.
I think, it's probably like a nod to that. And then you said a couple times, there's a couple jumping scenes where Marv is jumping through the air and it looks exactly like the Dark Knight Returns pose from the cover.
Yeah.
And except there's no lightning in the background. It's just white. So, he knows what he's doing. I think he knows exactly what he's doing back then. So yeah, he gets some information about, some guy. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He's asking. And then as he leaves, two guys come up behind him and are like, "Hey, why don't we step outside?"
Yeah.
And they go through a back alleyway. And this was funny because Marv is like, he's not intimidated at all by these two, by the way. They have guns and shit. He's like, whatever. And one guy has a coat and he's like, "That's a nice coat you got there." And Marv just keeps mentioning his coat like, I wouldn't want anything bad to happen to that coat you got there. So These guys try to kill Marv, but he's able to trip one of them, the one with the gun, and shoot the other one. And this is where you see like how hardcore Marv is. Like we saw him beat up cops, but this is like what he's willing to do to get some information from people who definitely aren't good guys that were going to kill him. So there's no limits on this, right? Like, I mean, with the guy that looked like Wolverine, it was in the bar. He knows him. He just kind of grabbed his face hard, and threw him down on the ground. But with this, he he shot and killed one of them, and then he's got the other guy shot in the stomach. So he's like, I kept you alive. I did that for a reason. It wasn't like because I missed or whatever. It was like, I want you to be able to talk, but I want you in pain, and you're going to die, just so you know. But like, you're going to tell me what I want to know first. And the guy's like, I ain't telling you shit. And then he shoots him in the dick. And the guy's like, okay, I'll tell you. So
take off the coat first.
Yeah, and he tells him, like, take off the coat. Basically he tells, the guy tells him, does he mention the name Rourke or something? And that's what
he on it. Actually, he says Stern put out this hit, and but he definitely is like on edge about it, but he shoots him.
Yeah, that was the funny thing is like right when Marv gets the information, he's like thanks, and he just like shoots him in the face and then kills him. So but he takes that jacket, like you said, he's like, you're bleeding all over that jacket. Can you take it off? I know, please?
It's a nice jacket.
So now Marv's got a new trench coat, and he's got a new name to look for. So that's pretty much what the next couple scenes are. A big thing that happens is while he's walking down this alleyway, he gets a hint of perfume.
Yeah, he's like, it smells like Goldie.
Yeah, I smell angels, and I know Goldie's here, but that can't be right. Goldie's dead. It must be my mind playing tricks on me. But then we see there is a woman that looks exactly like Goldie, hiding behind a wall, and she's got a gun, and she's saying, "Bastard, you're gonna pay for what you did to me." So we're like, "Wait, what? Like, who is this person? Is it Goldie? Dun, dun, dun. We don't know." But yeah, also I should say this was serialized. This first book was serialized. That's why there's like different parts to it. It says like part 1 through like 10 or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it was like, oh, here's 10 pages, here's 5 pages, here's
10 interesting.
It was in like another magazine or something. So that's why it is the format that it is, kind of thing. I think that's why there's so many like we got to go to this guy to get to this guy to get to this guy to get to that guy, and then that guy knows who really done it, kind of thing. So that's what actually happens is he just tracks down Stern. Stern gives him a name of another person, and then I love this. You just see like him. He doesn't spend as much time torturing in the next couple scenes. It's just like you see him arrive. You see the guy be like, ah, like in his face, and then you see like bloody face of that guy, and then you see maybe him shoving his face in a toilet or breaking an arm or whatever, and then he's just like, I'm having a great old time, as Marv is like jumping out the window leaving because he got the next piece of information. And eventually one that was kind of cool, I thought, is he's driving a car, dragging a person outside the car with his face down, with the guy's face down into the ground as he's driving. So he's literally like rubbing the dude's face off on the street. It's like, Jesus Christ. So yeah, shit like that, is definitely an interesting, like what, like I liked how it just cut to those scenes of violence, and then like, okay, we get like what he's doing.
We get he's hardcore.
And so this all leads to him getting, going to like some kind of bishop or priest or whatever in the town. This is where we find out the priesthood is actually in on it. The religious hierarchy or whatever the fuck they're called. I don't know. What are they called, John? Bishops and stuff? Or?
Yeah, bishops and cardinals.
Okay. Yeah, they're all in on this kind of whatever's going on. And so Marv finds out, okay.
Marv goes to confession, but not to confess.
Yes.
Not to pray.
Exactly. He goes there. He starts asking. He says, forgive me for I have sinned. I killed a bunch of people today. Got a lot of blood on my hands. And then he just asked the guy, someone, I was asking the last guy I murdered, who was in charge of this thing, and he fingered you. That's interesting. And then like the guys, you see the face of the Padre being like, it says Padre. So I don't know what the fuck, is he a priest?
Yeah, so he's a priest.
So the priest is like what the fuck, and then you hear like, and you see like he's got the gun cocked and he's asking for a name, and the priest at first is like, this is the house of God, and And Marv is like, just give me the damn name. And so the priest says Rourke, and Rourke is like the head. I don't know what you call him.
He would be like the archdiocese
of Sin City.
Yeah. So every time you hear something big going on, like a big event or a big scandal, it's usually because this archdiocese or archbishop of the biggest church in town, like in Boston or New York or something, like
is in on it.
Yeah. So that's what's going on here.
Rourke, he says Rourke's name, and Marv is like, I don't believe that. That's way too high up. Like that. There's no way it can be Rourke.
Yeah.
And so, he leaves, and as he's leaving, because he doesn't quite believe that, but he's like, whatever, I'll figure it out. There's got to be another priest or something I could torture. So, as he's leaving, he sees a car coming at him, and he's like, what the hell? And he points his gun up, and then he sees the person driving is Goldie, and he's like, Goldie? And then she hits him with the car. She swings around, hits him again with the car. And he just doesn't understand what's happening, so he doesn't do anything. He just kind of like confused while she's like shooting at him, and she doesn't hit him, but she did hit him with the car. She doesn't hit him with the bullets.
Yeah.
So he's not he's not feeling too hot. He got hit by the car twice at least. So he's like, Goldie, like, and then so he's like, it couldn't have been. She was dead. There's no way that was her. My pills are wearing off. So like, he's so confused, but. We did forget to mention that the priest, besides telling him the name Rourke, mentioned that because he was like, bullshit, there's no way it's Rourke. And then the priest was like, no, there's a farm. If you go to this farm, you will understand.
You'll find out.
You'll find out what's going on. So Marv, after getting hit by the car with Goldie, he still is like, that wasn't Goldie. As he's driving, like I'm so confused right now, but I do know there's a farm. So he goes to the farm, and he's like instantly like, I know this is a bad place. Like I could just tell. There's something in the air or whatever. He feels it in his stomach. He always gets that icy feeling in his stomach, and he's never wrong with that. So when he gets there, he jumps over a fence and instantly comes face to face with a dog that is very angry and feral looking. But the dog jumps at it. He tries to be like, it's okay, Pooch, don't worry. And the dog's like, ah, and he's like, jumps at, or I think he just kicks the dog and then like knocks it out with a punch when the dog comes at him. So.
Yeah, he doesn't kill the dog. He just knocks the dog out.
Yeah, I mean, you can't kill a dog.
Marv has his code.
His a code, damn it.
And apparently dogs are part of that.
But as he's checking out the dog, making sure it's not dead and also just like knocked out completely, someone walks up behind Marv so stealthily that he cannot hear him. And Marv is like, so far has been like pretty damn good at, not being surprised or taken by surprise from people. So this guy walks up, and he's not really given like a look or like a face or anything. You just see him as blacked out. He's got glasses though. The glasses are like what give him away his character. He's also wearing like a Charlie Brown sweater. He's got the lines, the pyramid, the little hilltops or whatever. And so the guy sneaks up behind Marv and picks up a sledgehammer that was on the ground next to like a tractor and hits Marv in the face with it and knocks him out. And there was it was kind of like a fight scene up to that, but basically he knocks him out with the sledgehammer. And he's like, and then instantly Marv is like, I know it. You're the guy that killed Goldie.
You snuck up on me. You obviously were the one who snuck in that room.
Yes.
It's you.
Yes. And that's when he gets the knockout blow with the sledgehammer is when we see Kevin's face. He's revealed to us his name is Kevin. Or we find that out later, but like this is Kevin. And we see his face. He's like, I don't know. He just looks like an average dude.
He looks like a guy who works in IT.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's exactly what he looks like.
Yeah, like maybe like he's got. It's hard to tell if he's got a little bulk to him or if he just has a big sweater with the Charlie Brown sweater that he's wearing. But yeah, he looks like a guy that you would see at the Apple store. Like, hey, what's going on? I'm your Apple. Yeah,
wouldn't leave you alone. Today, Just keeps trying to upsell you. Yeah. I think you need a new laptop. It's like, no, I just want you to fix my old one. Nah, that one's broken.
Yeah, you definitely need a new one. Plus these AirPods.
Yeah, and also you need. But yeah, anyway, so now Marv has been taken prisoner in this farm. He wakes up in a white room with like tiles and shit, and there's someone else in there with him. He sees a face. He's like, wait, what? And he looks, and it's actually a bunch of women's heads on the wall, like deer, like mounted like deer heads.
Yeah, like that. I did not see this coming at all.
You did?
No, he.
Why would
you? I know. It was. He wakes up and there's all these women's heads like on like those little wooden boards, like
plaques,
up on little plaques on a wall.
Yes. So they're mounted to the wall in this room, and also in the room is a woman, and he looks and he sees it's Lucille, his parole officer, and she's freaked out. She's like, "Oh my God, he eats people," and he's like, "What? What do you mean?" And then we see that her hand is gone, and she says that Kevin made her watch him eat her hand, like while she was awake and alive and everything. So he's like she says he sucked the bones off or the meat off the bones like while I was watching or whatever.
Yep.
So
He eats the rest of them and keeps the heads as trophies.
yes, so this dude eats people, and it's really creepy.
And I mean, there were at least like 7 or 8 heads on the wall already.
Yeah.
So
And then there's a creepy shot while she's screaming about it, and Kevin's just standing outside with like, of course, it's like a dungeon, right? So there's like a grate that kind of goes to the outside, like a window, and Kevin's just standing just outside of eyesight of that, and he's listening, hearing and you see him like kind of smile to himself.
yeah, it's super creepy.
Yeah. So then Marv gives her a jacket because she's basically, is she nude? I don't know.
Yeah, she was definitely topless again.
Yes, she's topless, of course, and so he's like, okay, cover yourself with this, and then he proceeds to try to break out of this place over and over again as she kind of explains what's been going on, like as far as like what's been going on to her, like she was drugged, then she woke up and he'd already cut off her hand, so he didn't cut it off while she was awake at least.
No, but he made her watch.
But he made her watch her. He made her watch him eat it. So that was
very Hannibal Lester-esque.
Yes, Hannibal Lecter.
Hannibal Lecter-esque. What did I say?
You said
Hannibal Lester.
Hannibal Lester. That's his less refined cousin or whatever.
That's his molester cousin.
Hey y'all, I'm Hannibal Lester. But yeah. So anyway,
I don't eat the liver with fava beans with Chianti. It's just a Bud Light. But hey.
Yes, exactly.
Sorry.
Just a Bud Light with lime in it, though. It's extra fancy. So anyway, while Marv is trying to get the bars out from the window, he sees Kevin get called into a limo, and they both leave. Like the limo leaves with them in it, and so he's like, "Oh, well, I'll see you later, Kevin." Like this gives him motivation to like bust out of there really good, right? So he is just hitting. I love this. He's just throwing himself at the door. And the door is like blocked by a piece of wood, and it's a metal door.
It looks like a big metal door.
It looks like a medieval door, like and so there's like a wood over, the front of it, and it's a metal door, so it's pretty fucking hefty. And he's just throwing himself like head first into this door, over and over and over. He's like running and jumping. He doesn't have that much room because the room looks like it's maybe 10 by 5 or something. Like it's not a very big room. But he's getting as much of a head start as he can, and he's just throwing himself into it. And eventually, this works, and the bolts break loose on that piece of wood that's being held, and he breaks through it. And it's just in time. I think they set off an alarm, right? Basically, that's what happens. So they set off an alarm, and that's what alerts police or some kind of security.
I think
team
security force,
to the farm. So he's like, we got to get out of here. So he hears a helicopter, and he gets his gun because, of course, his gun is nearby or whatever, like when he gets out of there. I guess, Kevin just set it down.
Just set it on a table or something,
And this is where, we get some more colorful characters. A lot of the people in this are very iconic. Like, there are people who are just regular civilians that you don't give a fuck about. And then there's like, oh, that's got to be a bad guy because he got a weird scar on his face or whatever. Or he's got a weird tattoo. And this is one of those guys where he's got a weird tattoo on his face and a very distinct look. But Marv was ready for it, and they're kind of coming in blind. They don't know exactly, maybe who's there or whatever. So
the guy kind of looks. It made me think of. He looks like a wrestler, like he did like. Like that. Sure. Remember Animal and Hawk.
I don't remember, but yeah.
Legion of Doom, the guy with the big
Sting,
shoulder pads.
Sting
Sting. Sting has face paint too.
Yeah, there you go. So it's like Sting. So I don't know all these other references to people.
The Legion of Doom, the guy with the big shoulder pads that have like spikes.
Okay, I remember that.
I
remember that one guy. So yes, okay.
I'm talking about old school ones.
School.
Yeah, you'll know some of those.
So anyway, so Marv, was trying to come up with a plan pretty quick, and unfortunately, the parole officer thinks that these are the actual police, like the good guys here to save him, but she thinks like, oh, they think he's a bad guy because he's got me, wrapped up naked or whatever, and he looks like the way he looks, so I'll go talk to them. So she knocks Marv out with like a rock or something that she finds, and because he wasn't expecting that. And then as he gets up, she's like, "Don't shoot! Like I'm his parole officer. He's fine, you know." And they see her, and the police just look at her and shoot her with a fucking. It looks like a Uzi or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, like whatever 1990s gun.
She gets riddled with bullets.
Yeah, she's just murdered, and Marv is not very happy about that. So he goes up and he finds a little hatchet that he basically takes on all these guys with.
All these guys with guns don't bring a knife
armor,
to a gunfight? Well, that's because you're supposed to bring a hatchet
or a Marv.
Yeah, a Marv
is the main thing. Yeah, if you don't bring a gun to a Marv fight, is what I'm finding out. So yeah, Marv just takes all these motherfuckers on. He uses the guns to his advantage though, because he'll like attack one guy and then push him into the rest of them so they can't get their guns out, and then take the gun from that guy he pushed and shoot the other people. So, you know, he's tactical about it. But yeah, all the fight scenes are pretty awesome. And he's just kind of having a ball. He's just smiling as, you know, he's laughing at people as he's murdering them and stuff. This is pretty good. This is like his elements, you know. And and then the best scene is at the end, we're just left with the wrestler guy. The wrestler guy still has a gun, except it's out of bullets. He's trying to pull it, and it's just click, click, click. Like he's done. And then Marv stops and looks at him and goes, "Now that there is one damn fine coat you're wearing." And the guy's like, "What?" And then we just see Marv like running after him as the coat like is, you know, trailing him, kind of like the bat's cape or whatever. And then you just hear Marv laughing like ha 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 ha, ha as he like chases him with a hatchet, and it's pretty awesome. Then you see he's got a new coat. the next page, and then we cut to pouring rain, and this is like a while later because he left the farm. He's like, you know, I don't need to be here now. I don't want to get caught here. Yeah. I gotta come up with a plan now that I know this motherfucker Kev is like the killer, right? And he's the guy that killed Goldie. Like that's kind of who I'm after, but also I want to find out who he works for, because obviously it's not just Kevin.
Yeah,
like who owns the farm?
He says maybe there is more to Rourke, basically.
Yeah, like he knows. Okay, it's got to be like who sends secret police to kill people other than like the Vatican or whatever, so, the Vatican or presidents or whatever. So he knows some political connection thing. So he's like, I got to prepare for this because it's a big thing, and obviously he knows like I can't beat Kevin in a straight fight. Like Kevin's quicker than him. He might be stronger than Kevin, but Kevin is faster and has like more moves, So he's like, I got to plan this out. So he goes on an item shopping spree, we'll say.
Yeah.
But before he does that, like he's standing in the rain, and I wanted to mention this because you said that this was some of your favorite art in this.
Oh yeah, it's just like the panels, and some of these panels are full page panels almost.
Yeah, a lot of them are because it's like him talking, narrating. So the dialogue's all on the side, kind of like Spawn comics, if you remember those. There's a lot of dialogue on the side of the page, and then there's like a big splash page of perfect artwork, phenomenal artwork.
Yeah, and that's what this is like. Some of them are just outlines of him walking in the rain, but you can tell that so beautifully, and the rain is coming. All these long streaks.
The rain is hitting him and splashing off of him, like the droplets. So you can see every droplet that's hitting off of him. So there's like an aura of like a mist around his coated body, like his trench coated body.
Yeah,
and then
his new
there's
coat.
Like the background is black because it's nighttime, but then there's lines of white that are like going around and coming from a bunch of different directions, but they're hitting him also, and that's creating like an aura of mist, of water mist around him. It just looks so fucking great.
Yeah, it looks really cool, and I think back to like when we read the Dark Knight ones, and I kind of mentioned this before, and then maybe it's because they were in color, so it didn't pop as well as it does in black and white, I think.
Right.
But yeah, like there's one in particular where it's the whole page of him standing there in his trench coat, like, and you don't see his face, you just see the kind of the top of his head and then the outline of his trench coat down, and like the rest of him is in shadow from the rain coming down past him. And like, I want a Batman panel of this exact same thing. Like, this is so freaking cool.
Yes, it's great. This is where the panel that I was like, wait, what's going on in this one?
This is the one?
No, this is the one.
I was like, this is my
this section is the one. I'll show you the panel.
Okay.
So, so it's him in the rain. I see it now, like as we're talking, but I didn't see it here. So there's like a white page. So it goes from like black pages to all of a sudden a stark white page. And then you just see the rain, like his image is still having the black and the rain falling through it. So now I see it's an above shot of him staring down from like his right side. But before that, I was like, what am I looking at? Like before I just saw it right here. Maybe it's because I was so close to it because I was reading it in the big thing. Yeah. Hardcover. So I was like, is this a face? What am I looking at here? Like, now I get it. Now I see it. So, but yeah, that can happen though when you're kind of doing these artistic representations of shapes that are supposed to be people. And also, like, rain and shit is happening and, like, other stuff's going on. You could definitely get lost in the image sometimes. But for the most part, he does an amazing job of keeping your eye focused where it's supposed to be. And now I see what was going on because I think, like I said, now I'm, like, 4 feet back from the screen, so I understand, oh, that's what it was. But but before that, I was like, I don't know what it is. That's why I was going to ask you, like, what is that? And then you would be like, oh, that's this. I'm like, oh, but now I got it. My eyes went together. It did the cross eye thing, and then I figured it out, just like those pictures. It's exactly what happened. So now he's got a plan. He knows that the archdiocese or whatever the fuck they're called.
Yeah, the cardinal, the head cardinal guy, Cardinal Rourke.
Yeah, and I'm sure this isn't like any specific church that they're referencing.
No,
sure
definitely not a church. Something that rhymes. Something that rhymes with Schmathlick.
Yeah. The Schmathlick Church. He knows, like, okay, it's this guy, it's this certain Rourke, and also not only that, but like the Rourke family is also connected politically. Like, the senator of this state is it the governor? One of those political positions is also a Rourke. And they talk about how the Rourkes were the ones who opened this, like, whore town in the Old West, and then they've just always stayed in power and gotten more powerful through that whole time. So that's kind of like the lore that we get while he's walking through this rain. So he's like, okay, I'm going to start, now that I know it's like the Rourkes, and we know what they brought this town in for the first place, I know who I need to ask about this. I'm going to go ask the red light district, I guess you'd call it, of this area, of this town. And this red light district plays a very important part in some of the other Sin City volumes. So This is like the first introduction to it. I like how one of them looks like she has a Wonder Woman costume on. Like she has like the bloomers with the stars on it.
Yep, very
They're
much
not.
so.
It's black and white though, so you can't. And it's from the back, so you can't really see, what her face looks like or if she's wearing a tiara or anything. But like he puts those.
It looks like
nods.
she got a lasso.
Yes, she does have a lasso. You're right. But it's for bondage, not for, And all of these prostitutes look like they're into, a lot of them look like they're into bondage. Like some of them have like Judas Priest wear, basically.
Yeah.
But like skimpier versions of Judas Priest stuff, like spiky leather.
Yeah, the one with the like skull cap of like leather spikes or leather with spikes on it is pretty wild.
Yes, but there's definitely, she would fit in a Judas Priest concert for sure.
Yes.
If she went there. So Marv goes to this red light district to ask about Goldie and what happened. And this is where he finds out the woman who's been following him, the one who hit him with the car that he thought was Goldie, and he's like, it couldn't be. I must have imagined that whole thing. He sees her here as he walks in to ask these women. And it turns out this part of the town is actually like a designated like no police area. So it's kind of like it's a by proxy legalized prostitution area because the police don't go there and enforce the laws. So they're all here, like every prostitute, and they have like their own kind of gang cliques and stuff. So it's kind of like they're their own clan here, so he goes to this specific one to ask because he knows them, and he sees one of them and he's like, oh my God, Goldie. And it's not Goldie. Turns out it's her twin sister, Wendy, who is also a prostitute, because Goldie was a prostitute. I don't know if we said that earlier.
No, yeah, but it's because it's not known before that he didn't realize that she was a prostitute.
Yeah, but now he does. Now he knows what happened. And like Wendy shoots him in the head, but kind of like grazes his forehead. So it doesn't kill him. It just knocks him out. They're able to tie him up. And then where we get like the whole breakdown of, oh, I'm Wendy, Goldie's sister, and I can't believe you killed her, and all those other women. because all the other women that were heads on Kevin's wall, they were also prostitutes. So that is why Kevin killed them or was able to kill them, because no one looks for prostitutes, especially when they have their own weird designated section of the city that the police don't go at all. Mm-hmm. And it was like kind of like a don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah, and do you know who else indulges in the prostitutes in this area?
The clergy.
The clergy.
Because Goldie worked the clergy. Mm-hmm. So basically she found something out. I don't remember what it was, but it's something important. Where like she found out that, or I guess she had dirt on them. Like as clergy, if she told on them, I think she tries to use it to like blackmail them or something, that like, oh, they fuck prostitutes. And then they're like, no, we can't let that get out. Or maybe she even found out because she was going, I think maybe Goldie was looking into the prostitutes that went missing and found that out. And then that's why they had to kill her, because she got away.
That's what it was. She found out where the other prostitutes were.
Yeah, so she must have got to the farm and then got away, kind of like Marv did. And then that's why she was on the run. And that's why she bumped into Marv and actually slept with him, because she was like, no one's going to fuck with this guy. I'll be safe with this guy. So, of course, they were watching her and they didn't. I mean, if I was her, I would be like, hey, maybe don't drink.
Yeah, don't drink so much.
Because he got blackout drunk. Yeah, that's what ended up leading to her death. But, not her fault. But
yeah. But so it was a double thing. So she was really nice to him because she wanted protection. But,
But she also didn't treat him differently.
Yeah.
Like, even though she probably inside maybe was, she didn't show it, and he really appreciated that, and that's why he loved her. Like, that's why he's like, she was willing to give me like that one night of awesomeness and to be with an angel like her, and I'll love her forever, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like she'll always be my first.
Yeah, because like he doesn't even like after he even learns that she was a prostitute, he's like, oh, well, that doesn't matter. Like,
it doesn't change anything. I feel like Marv wouldn't care about that. So they don't believe him at first. They kind of rough him up still a bit, but eventually he's like, why the fuck would I, be coming here and all this other stuff if I'm trying to kill prostitutes? Like, and they're like, oh, true. Like, good point.
That makes sense. To which he's like, after that whole entire like back and forth, he's like, okay, so now that we're on the same page, and he just like rips out of his.
He doesn't rip out. He just stands up, and his arms were already undone. And they're like, oh, you like let us beat you up? And he's like, yeah, I'm good with knots. And then she was like, but I tied those. And like the bondage girl is the one who tied the knots, so he shouldn't have been able to get out of them. But it's Marv, so he just let them beat up on him because that's how tough he is. He does, he's not going to hurt these women for being mistaken about what he did. And so, he tells them, look, I know who did it. Let's go kill him together. So Wendy is like, yeah, let's go kill him. So Wendy and Marv go to kill Kevin, but first they have to, like he was already going to do, he goes on a shopping spree, and we find out that he needs to get a couple items. And those items are handcuffs, a saw, razor wire.
I do like
gloves.
how they like in the panel they like pop it out, and then it's like
each individual item.
It made me think of what's the band from the Adult Swim Metalocalypse? What's the band? I'm blanking.
Death Clock?
Death Clock, yes.
Oh, okay.
It made me think of Death Clock because the one song, the Mermaider, where they're like, you get your knives, check, shivs, check.
Yes.
He's making a list.
Yeah,
checking
making a list. Exactly. Yeah, knives, check.
Because they're all murder lists that they're making.
Mermaiders.
Yeah.
Murder mermaids. Right?
Yeah.
But anyway, So he gets this list and it goes down the panels and you see each one, and then the last one is and my mitts, and he like just the panel of his hands being like so that's a great panel. But then before like they go, they like take a second, they go like take one night because they're trying to like create some distance, and they sleep in a hotel, and in this hotel there's like a couch and a bed, and Marv is sleeping next to her on the couch. It's really close to the bed. I was surprised, like how close. Maybe it's just kind of supposed to be like they're not that close, but he feels like it's that close or something. But he's kind of like, and she of course sleeps almost naked, just like covers off, like in lingerie or whatever, and he's just like, oh God, like she's so pretty.
Like, she looks just like Goldie.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Oh no, and then we see like a panel of him standing up and going over to the bed. And he says, Goldie? And she's like, he's like, Goldie baby? And he must be like putting his arm on her shoulder. And then she slaps him. And then he's like, I'm sorry, I was confused. Because he actually was confused. He thought, oh, wait, is that Goldie? Like, I forget, because my medicine. I've been off my meds too long. He hasn't been able to get a refill ever since, his parole officer died. So, so he's like, oh, yeah, I got to stay on the couch. I'm such a jerk or whatever.
Yeah, which is, and Wendy she's like, it's fine. Get some sleep.
Yeah.
Like, it's nice that she doesn't, like, hold it against him or whatever.
Yeah. So she understands. He's not trying to be a creep. He just thought it was Goldie who, they've already done it. And
so
they were kind of a thing in his mind at least. So, he tells her to wait at the car once they get to the farm the next day. And he's coming from the side road or whatever. So he's going through the woods and he's got a whole plan. He sets up razor wire in order to slow Kevin down because Kevin's very fast. He's very agile. So he's like, if I'll put razor wire around, that'll make it so.
If he trips up on it, he'll get,
Exactly. Could cut off his foot or something, wounded pretty bad. So he gets this whole trap set and then he's like, and then I ring the doorbell or whatever. And he like lights a can of gasoline and throws it into the house. And then he runs back to the woods and Kevin bursts out the window. Like the second the can goes through the window, Kevin's already bursting out of the window. So like, it's pretty funny. Like he's always ready, I guess because the gasoline's going to explode because there is a big explosion as it lands. I guess all the gas bursts out. And,
explodes.
Explodes exactly. So the funny thing is all that planning and like setting up of the razor wire doesn't really do anything because Kevin's so agile. He even misses that. He on purpose is able to dodge all that shit and just jumps over it. And Marv's like, God damn it. Like he is slick, and so then, but Marv's plan is actually a little bit more nuanced than that. Like Marv knows I can take some hits from this guy as long as he doesn't have a sledgehammer, So, and Kevin's just fighting with his fists. So the plan he has is actually, if I can just get him close to me, that means I can just punch the fuck out of him because he can't knock me out, but I could definitely do some damage with my fists. So that's what he does. He has a pair of handcuffs and he just lets Kevin get close enough to him to try to like beat him up. And then once Kevin kind of starts attacking him close, he can get the handcuffs on him and then Kevin is stuck.
Yeah, he's stuck right next to him and all he's going to do is punch him in the face.
You can't jump around.
Go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep.
Yeah. You go to sleep now. So that's what he does. He handcuffs Kevin. And he is able to knock Kevin out with a bunch of punches, but eventually one big punch puts him out. And then, he goes to work on him, he says. But at first, Goldie shows up. Or not Goldie.
Wendy.
Wendy shows up, and she's like, let me kill him, Marv, because she didn't wait in the car. She wanted to see what happened. And Marv is like, no, I got to figure out, like, what happened first. Like, who he's working for exactly. So
he's got to confirm.
Exactly. Wendy is like, no, I want to shoot him, and he just like slaps her, and he's like, sorry, kid, I don't like to do that, but I can't have you killing him. I got to question him for information, and I think it's a mix of information, but he already kind of knows, enough.
Yeah,
I think he also just wants the satisfaction of seeing this guy suffer.
Yeah, I think so. Well, yeah, because he also says like, I don't want her to see because like it'll give her nightmares what I'm going to do to him.
Oh yeah, and it's not a bullet to the head. He cuts off. Before Kevin can wake up, he cuts off Kevin's limbs, and now he's just kind of got stumps.
He's old stumpy. He's got no arms and no legs.
Yeah, and one of the things that Marv bought was tubing, like that poly tubing or whatever. So he ties that around the limbs while he's working. He's like, and he tells Kevin, who doesn't say anything. He wakes up and he's like smiling. He's got this weird smile on his face the whole time, and Marv is like, "Yeah, I finally got that tubing tight enough to stop the spurting." Really hard though. That stuff kept breaking. It took a while, but I eventually got you to stop bleeding out. And then he's like, at least long enough for your before your friend gets here. And why don't you start talking, or I'm going to let your friend eat you. And then the dog shows up, and he won't say anything. Kevin doesn't say anything the entire time he's being eaten alive by a dog. And it's super creepy. He's got the same look on his face.
Yeah, he doesn't scream even. Nothing. Not a sound.
Just smiles. Very, very creepy. So, he didn't need that information, like I said earlier. He just wanted the satisfaction to get Kevin to talk. but Kevin never does. So he's kind of left with Wendy, and he's like, well, what are we going to do now? He takes Wendy to the girl that was dancing. Her name is Nancy. He takes Wendy to Nancy's house and says, like, watch her for me. I got to go take care of some shit. Also, like, we covered our tracks so no one's going to, like, know that you're part of this at all. And this is some bad shit. I probably won't return because I'm fighting not only Kevin, but also his boss. So that we know that's some connected shit. So Marv goes to this compound that has like a cross, and it looks like some weird religious compound because it has like a literal like domed steeple with fucking a cross on the top of it and everything.
It kind of reminds me of like the Alamo, like
it looks like Alamo. If the Alamo had a big cross on the top of it and was like domed, like, oh great. Now I don't know if you guys can hear that, but there is a lawnmower outside, so we apologize if you can hear that. But anyway, you what were you saying? It looks like the Alamo.
I just meant like so like the not just the building of the Alamo now, like that whole mission of the Alamo is the Alamo building itself was the chapel, and then there were the grounds that had like the walls around.
Right, it was like a fortress.
Yeah, exactly.
So okay, yeah. So there is a fortress around this that has gates and everything and guards. And Marv takes them out, no problem. I like how he takes them out after the guy checks in. He's like, no, all clear here. And he's like, like snap, neck snap right there. Perfect timing is what I'm saying. Marv knows how to kill these guys, you know. So Marv makes it all the way up to the chapel, like the steeple or whatever, the top. Where I guess this is where the guy sleeps, is in like the top part of this this chapel area. And of course, I mean, it makes you closer to God, right?
Yeah.
So the guy, the priest wakes up. His name is Patrick Henry Rourke. And Rourke is like, what, Kevin? And then the reason why he says that is because Marv has Kevin's head in a bag. And he's like holding it out like in front of him. So the first thing he sees is Kevin's face. And he thinks, oh, Kevin's here. But no, it's Kevin's head in a bag. And he's like, close. But no, it's not Kevin.
Yeah, it's just what's left of him.
Yeah. And so, you know, Marv's got a gun. He says, if you scream, I'll kill you. And then he proceeds to like find out what's been going on, why he did all this, why did they kill Goldie and everything. And basically it's super fucked up. Like just the priest is like, you're a monster. You killed that precious boy, Kevin. He was so beautiful. And it's just like, what? And then it turns out that this priest, you know, found Kevin as a young man or whatever, or a young boy maybe. And then found out that he liked to eat people. And at first he was like, no, you can't eat people. But then he like found out, oh, wait, we can just use prostitutes to feed you. And then it's like, oh, and also he told me about it. He said it was like he was so happy and filled with the white light. And
yeah, he said that you think he didn't talk, but he did. But he only talked to me.
Yeah.
And his
voice was beautiful.
Yeah. And he's like, no, you don't understand. He didn't just eat people. He ate their souls. He consumed them like their spirit.
And he had like this white aura about him. It's really weird. But then he's like, and then Kevin would tell me how amazing it was. So I eventually like joined in and started eating people, is what he confesses to Marv. And Marv just like, what the fuck? So Marv kills that dude, just strangles him, and the police and everybody are already alerted to that he's there. So like, you know, the bodies he never covered up the bodies that he like killed of the security team. So the security team breaks in and they shoot Marv, and now he's arrested. And he's like, oh, I hoped they would shoot me in the head, but they didn't. In fact, they kept me alive on purpose. They blamed all the murders on him from the archdiocese, which they covered up the fact that, oh, Kevin was eating people and the farm and all that stuff. They just say, oh, this crazy man Marv killed the archdiocese. They killed, he killed the women, the prostitutes, and then everybody else, even Lucille, they say. And he wouldn't talk and everything, and he's like, apparently they brought him confessions, and he wouldn't confess until they said, we're going to kill your mom. And he's like, fuck it, I'll sign it, you pussies. And then like he signs it right away, and he gets the book thrown at him by the judge, who was like, you are a monster. And so then he's in prison, and he knows, you know,
it's not much longer.
Yeah, he knows that he's going to get the death penalty, basically. He knows he's going to fry. And the nice thing is, I guess they let him have like a conjugal visit or something, because somehow Wendy gets to go there and say goodbye to him. And she says goodbye in the best way possible.
Yep.
And,
She says, "You can call me Goldie."
yeah, which is weird.
Which is weird. Yeah.
But hey, it's Marv. Sure, whatever. And so and it was kind of like, oh, he's confused because he's not getting his medicine either.
Yeah.
So he calls her Goldie there, right?
Yeah.
And then, but he says, "Oh, I'm sorry, Wendy, I get confused." And she's like, "No, it's okay, Marv. You can call me Goldie." And then after while they're sleeping together, and then they fall asleep, he says Goldie. She says her name is Goldie, which is how the comic starts. With those words. And then the next panel, we see him in the electric chair. And I love this, but this is so fantastic. There's a priest, and he's reading like, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death." And Marv is strapped down. He's got his head shaved with the metal bowl on top of it that's got connected to the electrodes. Yeah. And he's about to be electrocuted. And he's just like, "Could you move it on? Or could you get a move on? I haven't got all night. Like, hurry the fuck up with this thing." And so they're like, "Whatever." And they just, lower the switch, the standard,
medieval
Frankenstein, medieval switch that's like a handle with a fork on the end of it. And he does that, and they electrocute him. And then he's like, "Is that all you got, you pansies?" And they do it again. And he's then finally dead after 2 times of what do they say, 20,000 volts or something, whatever the fuck it is. And so, he's fried after that, and that's it. And then someone comes over and says, "He's gone." They take his pulse, and he's dead. That's the end of Marv.
And that's the end of Marv. And that's the end of the comic.
Yes, exactly.
This first volume.
Yeah. So, John, what did you think of it? What would you give it?
I liked it overall a whole lot. Like, it took me, like you said, it took a little bit to kind of get into the, like, how do you fall in love so fast? And again, that's just me maybe being married for 20 years. I was like, I didn't fall in love that fast, did I?
How long have you been married? You said 20 years?
I was joking.
40 years?
40 years.
We've been married 60
We've been married 65 years.
Every time you say it to someone, it just goes up. It's like Will Arnett's character with the suits. Yeah. He's like, this $10,000 suit. Michael.
Oh, you expect the guy in the $15,000 suit to hold the door for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, the $20,000 suit.
Yeah.
Yes. It's exactly like that, but with your marriage.
Yes. But I mean, again, the art, just some amazing panels. The whole thing was great, but just some that really, like I said, stood out and just was like, wow, how did he do this?
Yes. This is Prime Miller.
Yeah, Prime Miller. And the story was really good. Like you said, it was a good, like, crime thriller, and I didn't see the cannibal thing happening.
And how could you?
And I didn't see it being a twin. I thought it was just going to be like, I thought it was going to be a fake out, like she maybe took a pill or something, and it was like a fake death. Yeah. It was to, like, that's why I said, like, I thought maybe we'd get a background on him, because I thought it would be a fake out death, and it's like, it was really to get Marv for something, in his past. But no, it wasn't. It was just not doppelganger even. It was it's a twin, twin sister.
It's the other trope.
Yeah.
There's a twin and looks exactly the same and smells the same.
Smells the same. Yeah. Uses the same perfume.
Yep. Everything. They do that on purpose just to confuse you.
Yeah. So yeah, but I really liked it a lot. It was really fun. Like we said, it's Prime Miller.
Yeah.
So
Prime Miller.
Prime A1.
Grade A.
Grade A. I was going to say not dry aged, but yeah.
Dry aged Frank Miller.
Frank Miller.
Yeah. So what would you give it then?
I would give this one, since you said, especially, I'm going in a little bit because you said it'd get even better. And it's a really good initial one, and I definitely would love to see where it goes. I would give it an 8. Okay,
yeah. For me, I think I give this an 8 too. The story is simple, but like shocking. This is one of those, it's kind of like if someone tells you to see a movie and you've seen a lot of movies of that style, like if someone's like, "Oh my God, this is the scariest horror movie I've ever seen," but you are a connoisseur of horror movies, you're probably not going to be scared. You know what I mean? Like probably whatever that normie or whatever, the person that hasn't seen as many stuff as you, if they tell you something scary, it's probably not that scary. So this is kind of like if you've read a lot of Frank Miller or a lot of weird fucked up comics, it doesn't shock you as much as probably it would if you read it and it was one of your first comic experiences or something. That's why I was like, oh, you get to read this for the first time. That's fucking awesome, because I had it spoiled by the movie before I read it. So
yeah, I mean, I definitely want to see. I know you said it's not quite up to snuff as far as like comic book movies.
No,
go,
I mean,
but I still want
the
to
thing
see.
is, I just mean that like it's not the comic book movie you know.
Yeah.
It is a perfect representation of this comic though. So
Yeah.
if you want to see that,
I do. Yeah. I
yeah,
want to watch
then
it.
I would suggest it. You will get a bunch of other stuff spoiled because this is like the first mix of a story inside the rest of the story. It's not. This isn't even the first one. This is one of the ones inside of the because they mix up the volumes.
Oh, so they do several volumes
yes,
within the movie?
they do 4 volumes in the movie.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But not like, not quite like you think. It's not like vignettes.
Really? Because like that, I mean, this could have been just this story on its own.
Right, yeah. So this is like just one part of it.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. There's 3 sections. There's 3 stories, and one, I think they overlap enough that it's the 4 books, I think, total. Something like that. I can't remember exactly.
Okay.
It's been a while since I read and watched them, so I know exactly. But for sure, the 4th volume is called The Yellow Bastard, and the Yellow Bastard is in the movie. So they got that part in.
Do they use it? Do they call him yellow because he
is
uses
yellow. Yeah,
okay.
he is the only color in the movie. They do red once or twice in it too, but for the most part, it's all black and white.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's very cool that you got to read this before you watch the movie. You could probably watch it now and be like, okay. The other stuff is, I mean, if you wanted to, you could read it. But hey, let us know if you guys want us to read all 7 of these volumes, like for the next couple, in the next coming weeks, because we could do that one for each one. But
We could do that, and then I could review the movie like as such a fresh pair of eyes.
there you go. You could definitely do that. At least the first 4 books you could do.
Yeah.
So anyway, let us know if you wanted that. Speaking of letting us, I have to give my thing. I thought we
You said 8, but yeah, you didn't really.
Yeah,
go into
yeah,
it.
8, and then I think this is such prime Miller, and like I said, it does get better. But like this is such a perfect comic, and if I had read this, not when it came out because I would have been like 5, but like if I'd read this when I was 14, I would be like, whoa. This is the coolest fucking thing I've ever read in my entire life. And so I think that's what the movie kind of did. Like the movie definitely for me was like, wow, this is the coolest fucking thing ever. And it made me want to read the graphic novel. And then when I read the graphic novel, I was like, okay, like I've already read this basically because I watched the movie. So it kind of spoiled it. But also, I mean, it doesn't because the visuals of the book are much cooler than the movie, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
Even the movie pushed boundaries for movies. But like the computer animation, all the stuff that they used, but in this, like the art is so fucking phenomenal. It's just crazy. So, actually, you know what? No, I'm gonna give it a 9. The art is so fucking amazing in this book. Every page you just stare at for hours and just be like, whoa, like that is how you draw that shit. And that's why, no matter what Frank Miller does nowadays, whatever, his art changed and people don't like that and they don't like his new stories, which I actually liked Master Race and some of those other things.
Yeah, I liked Master Race too. So
I even have a special place in my heart for Xerxes, even though it was really weird. I just feel like he did so much groundbreaking shit at the beginning that is like, you just got to give it to the man.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, he's coming out with new stuff. He started his own production company, and in November he's putting out 2 new stories. He's putting out Ronin 2, so he's doing the sequel to Ronin, which we haven't read, which we should read, because that's really early. That's some 1983 Frank Miller original graphic novel. So it's very weird, and interesting. We should totally do that. It's like a cyborg samurai, basically, is what it is.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and in a futuristic Blade Runner world or whatever. So it's very cool. And then the other one, I think it has to tie into 300 or something. So because the cover for it, I think, is the disfigured, the guy that gives up the information on the Spartans.
Oh yeah, he was
the disabled Spartan or whatever.
Yeah, I don't remember his name.
So something
Quasimodo
Achilles.
Spartan.
Yes, Quasimodo Spartan. Yes, that's exactly what he is. So, but anyway, yeah. So I'm gonna give this a 9. I'm gonna give this a solid 9. This was pretty fantastic for Frank Miller. Definitely, highly recommend you go check this out. But yeah, so. Next week, John, what are we reading?
Next week we are we had our poll this month. We had our monthly poll, and voting is now done. It's all closed.
Yes.
And once again,
we had to do it twice because we accidentally messed up on how long the poll was.
Yeah, I didn't put the length of it. So, but thank you for revoting for the people who revoted, and
We had
Once
a tie again.
We had a tie, which I was surprised. So if you do want to take part in those in the future, sign up for our Patreon. We've got a couple different tiers you can do. If you like Matt's mini Swamp Things, he's doing special Hellraiser ones.
Hellblazer.
Pardon me. I said Hellraiser. I'm sorry. I'm ready for Hellraiser comics. Anyway, so this month we gave a choice of manga. We haven't done manga on our channel in a while, so we picked a couple different mangas out there, and we got a tie. So this next week we will be doing Attack on Titan. Correct?
Yes.
Is that
yes? Attack on Titan.
I always think in my head because I'm like I remember seeing like their giant creatures. Is Attack of the Titans or Attack on Titan?
Yeah. Attack of the Titans.
Yeah. So Attack on
Remember
Titan.
the Titans. I think.
It's about Denzel Washington.
Wow, this was
together.
a great uplifting comic. About racial equality in football in the South
and giants.
And giants that eat
monsters.
people or whatever.
So we're doing Attack on Titan this week.
You've never read or watched or seen any of this, right?
I have seen. Yeah, I've seen images and Funko Pops. I have no reference for this otherwise.
Okay, I have watched the first episode, I think, of the anime that was on Netflix, and I was just like, whatever. Like it didn't really capture me. So I'm interested to see if the manga captures me because I tend to like the written or comic version better than the anime or movie versions. So
Matt prefers the George Orwell version of not George Orwell.
The fuck you?
That's
George R. Martin.
No. I said George Orwell and I meant Orson Welles. I don't know how I mixed those two up. But
wow. Okay. Anyway, John didn't take his medicine, and he's
I get confused. Goldie.
I have to keep feeding him pills as we're talking just to keep him on track. Anyway, so yeah, and if you would like to vote on those, like John said, you can become a Patreon member at patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books. And sometimes we get a tie. And when there's a tie, we generally will do both books. So next week, we're doing Attack on Titan. And the week after that, we are doing Battle Angel Alita, I believe it's called, Volume 1. And so, yeah, we wanted to make sure both sides got represented because, we just wing it. Usually John comes in and goes, what are we reading next week? I'm like, I don't know. And we just kind of look through a list. So might as well let you guys pick a couple if there's, enough people voting on it. So, we're going to do those two. And as far as Attack on Titan, I think we're going to do, there's a bunch of different volumes of this as far as like styles of volumes. There's one that's like a gigantic one that's labeled Volume 1, but it's got 3 in it or something. So we're going to do the one single first volume, like the original Takuban volume of this.
Okay.
And then the same with Battle Angel Alita, the first volume Takuban of it. Unless there's not that in the, I don't know. I've only seen the ones that are like kind of bigger for Battle Angel Alita, but we'll figure it out when we get there. But like John said, if you like Matt's Mini Swamp Thing, I do have a Matt's Minis Hellblazer on our Patreon, so you can go check that out if you would like. I have a special super fans here going on for that, like a special. If you would like to get that cheaper for the moment, it does have limited spaces. So if that's something that interests you, go check that out. Once again, patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, all one word. And
with that note, we want to make sure to shout out to our current patrons. So thank you, Otaku Mike and Hoku and Ed H. We really appreciate y'all so much.
Very much so, yes. Very, very, very much. So with that, unless there's anything else you can think of, I think we're good to go.
Yeah, I guess with that, we'll see you on the next one.
On the next one.
Bye.